Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLuga. Thanks so much for being here. Tuesday, March 18th, afternoon show for you. Good afternoon to everyone out there, all you Jags fans. So, we talked about the Jaguars' needs earlier today, and you can go back and watch that show if you want to get like a full rundown on how I view all the Jaguars' needs, both present and future. But one position I really wanted to talk about for the Jaguars specifically here is edge. You know, the pass rush. Yes, they have Josh Hines-Allen. Yes, they have Trayvon Walker. I love both of those players. I think that both of them are really that's a top duo in the league at edge. It is. And I know that the Jaguars as a team haven't been one of the best sack teams in the NFL over the last few years. But you look at Trayvon Walker the last 2 years, double-digit sacks in each of the last 2 years. As a young football player, as a player who, when he was drafted, it was known that he was more of a run defender, a freak athlete, somebody that needed to develop the pass rush bag a little bit. And is he the most consistent pass rusher on the planet right now? No. Has he been in the best situations to be a consistent pass rusher on the planet? No, absolutely not. The Jaguars' defense over the last year and a half has been atrocious on the back end. And so you look at a lot of the guys that end up having big-time sack production, consistent pressure numbers. A lot of times they are in competitive football games. They're in games where the other team has to throw the ball. The Jaguars simply defensively and as a team have not put their pass rushers in the best situations to thrive. And they still have put up big numbers and they still have big impacts. And Josh Hines-Allen is a great run defender, a high-effort player, a team captain. Trayvon Walker is also a big-time run defender, a high-effort player, and they're both great athletes, and they both have developed their pass rush. I mean, Josh Hines-Allen, he is, the last 2 seasons combined, he's eclipsed 25 sacks, right? 17 and a half in 2023, a year in which the Jaguars defense got off to a really hot start, slowed down the stretch. There was a lot of missed assignments on the back end, we'll say. And then last year, still had 8 sacks in a year in which he consistently just did not have enough help from the interior, from the back end, from the scheme. You had ridiculous subs in and out. You also had, they wanted Josh Hines-Allen to put on a lot of weight last year. And he did. I think he was playing close to 280, if not more than that. And this is a guy that normally is playing around 260 to 265 pounds. To me, it's just really kind of egregious, the plan at edge last year. But I think moving forward, Jaguars fans and the Jaguars coaching staff and brass should be really excited about Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker, but they do not have much behind that at all. Yes, maybe you could squeeze something out of Yasir Abdullah, a Miles Cole. Do I really see that happening? It's hard for me to see it. So you also have free agency. There's still edge guys out there, but as we talked about earlier today, when James Gladstone was asked specifically about edge and defensive line not being addressed in free agency so far, he said, yeah, they could sign guys, but they might get in the way of getting the young rookies on the field. So I think that they're going to address the defensive line in a big way in the draft, and I think they're going to address edge 3, maybe even edge 4 in the draft. I really do. And I think that that's going to happen. Honestly, I'd be surprised if the Jaguars have not drafted an edge player by the end of day 2. I think they will have drafted a interior defensive line player and an edge player by the end of day 2. My most likely scenario currently is still that they take Mason Graham at 5 overall. But could they take edge in the first round? At 5 if Abdul Carter falls, another edge if they potentially trade down. It would surprise me a little bit, just with the guys that could be available potentially. Again, I don't see Abdul Carter falling to 5 overall. I just can't see that happening. You look at the rest of the guys kind of projected in that first round area consistently. Jalen Walker, to me, that's not the type of player the Jaguars are going to draft. He is intangibly rich, but really I think it's difficult to project him as a pure edge. It really is. Shamar Stewart, one of these guys that, Trent Baalke would probably be all over drafting. Same thing with Mykel Williams. Are either of those guys refined pass rushers? Do they really add to what you need right now? If you're drafting one of those guys to be your Trayvon Walker, sure, but why do that when you have Trayvon Walker, right? And then you have guys like Mike Green, James Pierce Jr. Both of those guys get projected in the first round. I think James Pierce Jr. is a much better player overall, a freakier athlete, better tools. But both of those guys have kind of some off-field questions going on. And again, the Jaguars are bringing in people that are intangibly rich, guys that they think will elevate their ecosystem. Or is Mike Green going to do that? Is James Pierce Jr. going to do that? I'm not sure. So I don't really see a scenario where the first pick for the Jaguars is an edge, unless Abdul Carter somehow fell. And even then, I don't know that they would take him over a Mason Graham or Travis Hunter or whoever it may be. And again, I just don't see Abdul Carter falling. So that leads me to the second round, where I think it could be very possible that the Jaguars go get an edge rusher, a pass rusher in the second round. And the guys who I think kind of make sense starting in the second round for the Jaguars, if Donovan Ezraku is there, and shout out to Tony Wiggins, T-Wig over on Locked On Jaguars, who mocked Donovan Ezraku to the Jaguars at 32 earlier today. If Donovan Ezraku is there at 32, honestly, that's a sprint to the podium type of guy for me, because I think he is very rich with character. He's got an unbelievable skill set. He's an explosive athlete with great length and a bag of pass rush moves who brings it against the run as well. I don't think he's quite he's not the power merchant that Jared Verse was last year, but I think he's got just as much pass rush upside because of his ability to throw so much at you. He has the ability to win up the arc, win with length, natural leverage, inside counters. He's got it all. He's got an absolute bag of pass rush moves. And I think if you were drafting him to be your edge 3, that would be unbelievable. Now, if you're talking about drafting an edge in the second round when you have Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker, and Josh Hines-Allen ain't going anywhere for a long time, I don't think Trayvon Walker should be either. Trayvon is going into year 4. The Jaguars, in my opinion, should pick up his 5th-year option. And then after that, they should sign him to a new contract. And that new contract will start after the 2026 season. And so I don't think he should be going anywhere either. I think those are building block type guys. I know there's been rumors about potentially moving on from Trayvon, but I don't think it should happen. The good thing about drafting a Donovan Ezraku or someone else in that range, in the second round or third round, yeah, eventually you're going to have to sign them, but you don't have to worry if you want to, but you don't have to worry about that until 25, 26, 27, 28, until going into 2029. So, I think that gives you plenty of a runway to kind of get things figured out and sorted at the position. And I think that he would just give you such a good rotation. Donovan Ezraku would. I also think Nick Scorton would. And different type of player. He played way too big, kind of similar to Josh Hines-Allen this past year. He was in a system at Texas A&M where they wanted him to put on a ton of weight. You saw him drop a lot of that weight, and he looks every bit as explosive as you saw him the year prior when he was one of the most productive pass rushers in all of college football. And with his frame and flexibility and his ability to set a hard edge against the run, but also a bag of pass rush moves and inside spin, really kind of crazy flexibility for his size frame, I think he'd be a tremendous fit for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You look at Landon Jackson, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau. This is kind of a range of guys I don't think that I'd be super fired up about for the Jaguars, just because I don't know that any of them is going to really heat up the quarterback. I think Ezraku and Scorton have the potential to really do that at a high level in the NFL. I don't know that Jackson, Sawyer, Tuimoloau are going to do that. I think they have the potential to be fine starters, but not really dynamic pass rushers per se. I do think Princely Umanmielen has all the potential in the world to be a dynamic edge rusher out of Mississippi by way of Florida. But you look at him, is he going to fit what they want to have on their team from a character standpoint? You've heard rumors, you've heard scuttlebutt about maturity, different things like that. He hasn't quite all put it all together consistently in college, but there's maybe no one with more upside physically than Princely Umanmielen when you look at everything he can do. And he's got a bag of pass rush moves and can set the edge as well. So I think he could be a potential option. I don't think the Jaguars would be looking at him at 32 in all likelihood. I think if you were going to get a guy at 32, maybe if James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green fell and you felt comfortable with their character and their ability to elevate your ecosystem, certainly Donovan Ezuaku, I think Nick Scorton as well could be a fantastic fit. And you look at the way he played last year, you're like, way too big. But thinking about what his weight is now, down to like in the 260 range, 250s, starts to kind of remind you a little bit of somebody the Rams drafted last year, Jared Verse. Yeah, I think Scorton could be a big-time player for them. So we're going to talk about some more guys here first. Got to remind you all about Underdog Fantasy. Grab your phone and your dancing shoes. It's time to make entries on March College Basketball with Underdog. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward. Signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code DuvalDaily, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit to play. Choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, i.e. points, assists, rebounds, and more. Y'all already know. I told you earlier today. I'm looking at selecting my Gator, Walter Clayton Jr., first team All-American, to go higher on points. That's Underdog Fantasy. Promo code DuvalDaily to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus, 90 plus Alabama and Nebraska, 90 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona 1-800-NEXT-STEP. 1-800-639-8783 or text next step to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Shout out to Underdog Fantasy for supporting them, supporting us. So, again, the two guys I've kind of pegged as the best options for the Jaguars in the second round, Donovan Ezuaku, Nick Scorton. If Princely Umanmielen fell to the third round, that'd be an interesting one for sure. I think Braden Swinson could make a lot of sense as well. He's got a bag of pass rush moves. He's got kind of that natural pass rush profile. I think he can continue to be developed. I think playing behind a Josh Hines-Allen, a Trayvon Walker could really help him out. Somebody who I've mocked to the Jaguars and I think would be really, really intriguing is Femi Oladejo out of UCLA, linebacker converted down to edge this past year. And I mean, he was actually playing off-ball linebacker during the season in 2024, converted down to edge a few games in full-time. And he's got all the tools you're looking for. He's got the type of energy you're looking for. I think he is going to elevate the ecosystem, as James Gladstone likes to say, wherever he ends up landing. And I think the arrow is just squarely, obviously pointing way, way up for Femi Oladejo from UCLA. I think you just look at, he's kind of got it all from a upside standpoint, and he's not just upside. Like, he set a hard edge this past year at UCLA. He did a tremendous job at the Senior Bowl as well. And he was able to create disruption in the backfield despite being fairly raw as a player. And you look at the profile at 6'3", 260 pounds, 33 3/8 arms. He's explosive. He's strong. I think he'd be a fun prospect to kind of take a swing on there in the third round. We haven't really talked about this as much, but could they go Josiah Stewart to pair with Mason Graham? Josiah Stewart out of Michigan is a smaller edge. To me, I think personally I have him more of a day three guy, early day three, but he could certainly be a third round target. I think he's a little small, doesn't have great length. Obviously, that hasn't stopped the Rams before. He does have tremendous speed and a ghost move. You've seen the Rams, James Gladstone's former stomping grounds, their former team there, select Byron Young out of Tennessee, who kind of has a similar profile to Josiah Stewart. So that could play certainly. I think Kyle Kennard in the third round, or if he fell to the fourth round even, could certainly be an interesting target for the Jaguars out of South Carolina. And he's another one where you could get the Jared Verse, Braden Fisk 2-for-1 special, right? you could get TJ Sanders, interior defensive lineman for South Carolina, and Kyle Kennard in this draft, and pair these guys up together. I'm not saying James Gladstone's going to try to do that every year, but when the shoe fits, right? Kyle Kennard, 6'4", 254, 34-inch arms. He had good production this year. 4.73, 40-yard dash, not very impressive, but the 23 bench press reps, I don't think he's quite the same level of athlete as some of the guys we've talked about, and I think that shows up on tape as well. But as a third edge, I think he has a chance to be somebody who can make plays for you. I really do. So these are some guys I'm looking at heavily. Jared Ivey is one that I think would play well when you talk about his ability to move around the defensive front. He's got tremendous size, athleticism, length, very productive at Ole Miss. Another one of those Ole Miss guys. They've got several of them on the defensive front that are going to be in this year's draft. So Jared Ivey is someone I know Trent Baalke would have been all in on Jared Ivey, but I think that this regime could also have some interest there. Ashton Gelati. I love his game. He's kind of a sawed-off bull in a china shop, but he's got a little bit more flexibility than you would expect out of Louisville. Very productive. I think he can set a hard edge. He can get up under your pads, a little bit of a shorter guy. And speaking of a shorter guy, David Walker, earlier today, Brandon Graham retired, and Brandon Graham was obviously high pedigree, Michigan, big-time draft pick, but he was a little bit of a sawn-off guy as well. In plays like his hair's on fire, was a tremendous Eagle. Great football player for a long time. I don't know that David Walker's ever going to be a Brandon Graham, but David Walker out of Central Arkansas kind of has that to his game a little bit. At like 6'1", he's over 260 pounds, and so not the biggest guy in terms of height and length, but he's got a lot of muscle and strength in his frame to be able to win through. And with his natural leverage, I think he's going to be a difficult task for a lot of tackles at the NFL level. Tyler Barron's an interesting one, and we're starting to move down into, I think once you get past Kyle Kennard on the guys we've talked about, I think you're definitely starting to talk about day 3. Again, I expect the Jaguars to have selected an edge in the first 3 rounds of the draft. You've got 4 picks. I think edge should be one of those picks. I would be shocked if they do not select an edge by the end of round 4. And at that point, they will have selected 6 players based on their current draft capital, right? You have your first round pick, your second round pick, your 2/3, and 2/4. So I think that this could be a range as well for the Jaguars to be targeting. Jared Ivey, Ashton Gelati, David Walker, Tyler Barron out of Miami. This is a guy who has a lot of the traits you're looking for from a physical standpoint. There's some flashes on tape. I think you want to continue to develop the consistency there with Tyler Barron, but he's got a lot to get excited about. I love Antoine Power-Ryland, and we've talked about it a few times on this show. Antoine Power-Ryland and Aeneas Peebles, the 2 Virginia Tech defensive linemen. Antoine Power-Ryland is more of that smaller edge rusher, but has a lot of explosiveness and juice and a really nice spin move and can bend at the top of the arc. So I think that he's an exciting guy. If you paired him up with Aeneas Peebles, you could be talking about a NASCAR package that you can get fired up about. 2 guys that can just absolutely help you out, blitzkrieg towards the quarterback, right? Few other guys later in the draft. I'm pretty excited about Q Robinson out of Alabama. Alabama just always has a ton of talent on the defensive front, and Q Robinson kind of suffered in terms of playing time because of that. Just didn't get on the field a whole lot, but when he was on the field, he was productive. He's got the traits you're looking for size-wise. I think he's very explosive. So Q Robinson, somebody a little bit later round. Some other names to keep an eye on. Baron Sorrell had a pretty good Senior Bowl week out of Texas. He's somebody to keep an eye on. K'Mon Rucker out of North Carolina certainly is somebody who's been very productive throughout his career. And again, these are going to be later round guys that we're kind of looking at now at this point. So, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, I don't know that he's an edge. I don't know that he's an interior defensive lineman. He's an interesting one. Colin Oliver, pretty productive out of Oregon State. So I think that's a nice list of names for y'all to get familiar with in this draft class for the Jaguars. But again, when I look at this thing, I would expect them to, by the very least, at the end of round 4, to have selected an edge rusher. I would really like to see I wouldn't be mad at all if they take an edge rusher in round 2, Donovan Ezraku, Nick Scorton. In round 3, I think there's a bevy of players that make sense potentially for them. So, again, let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Fired up to see what the Jaguars are able to do to kind of round out year 1 of roster building in the new era with James Gladstone, Liam Cohen. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.